Hey, did you know that there are 3 different types of parliamentary governments? If you didn't, here they are: majority, minority, and coalition. In each type of government, I'll expound on how they work and how it affects governing. Let's start off by talking about majority government. There are 308 electoral seats to be won by the political parties in the House of Commons. An interesting fact is later in 2015, there will be 338 electoral seats that would need to be won. So, when a leading political party make up more than 50% or 155 or more seats in the House of Commons, they form the majority government. The Prime Minister and his party gain many advantages for winning. Currently, Stephen Harper is our Prime Minister, and the Conservative Party is the majority government. His party will always be guaranteed support from the majority of the seats in the House of Commons. All of the government's bills and laws will always be passed with the majority support. It also means that the government or party will always win votes about what bills or laws they propose, avoiding falling before the end of the term. Opposing parties also lose power because they are a minority. Minority? Well, that's our second parliamentary government. So, what is a minority government? A minority government is made when a single party fails to capture the majority of the votes. The political party, besides the majority government, can decide to form a government of their own. For example, the Progressive Conservatives make up the majority government. The other parties like Liberal, NDP, and Wild Rose would be considered a minority government. The minority government must rely on the support of the other political parties to pass laws. They first need to make deals with other parties in order to pass legislation into laws. If they are successful in receiving the majority of the votes, they are able to take on the majority government. They are disorganized, slow to pass laws, and prone to collapse. Minority governments can be defeated if the other parties work together to bring them down. Because they have a tendency to last a short period of time, minority governments may not get a chance to pass a law that they wanted to set. They must constantly work to maintain the confidence of the House of Commons or Legislative Assembly in order to stay in power. During the years between 2004 and 2011, there was a lot of minority government-related drama. There are 3 back-to-back minority government terms in a row during that period, allowing for constant speculation about the possible emergence of a coalition government. I just said coalition government. Do you know what type of government that is? A coalition government happens when the opposing parties in a minority government create an agreement which allows them to cooperate with each other and take control of the government. The coalition government in Canada has never been successfully attempted. Despite the first coalition government signed in 1864 by the Clear Grits, Parti Bleu, and Liberal Conservative Party, it did not work out. According to Canadian historian Christopher Moore, coalition governments in Canada became much less possible in 1919 when the leaders of parties were no longer chosen by elected members of Parliament, also known as MPs. During 2008, 2 of Canada's opposing parties, Liberal and NDP, were successful in creating the second coalition government from the Confederation. But before the coalition government could take their first step, Stephen Harper was granted his prorogation. Have you ever heard of the word prorogation? Well, prorogation is a fancy word for ending the legislative session. o.canada.com explains each parliament is made up of sessions, and each session is made up of individual sittings or meetings. When a session is prorogued, it ends one session, and nothing can happen until the next session begins. Prorogation stops government bills in their tracks and dissolves committees. You're probably thinking, how does that relate to coalition government? Well, take for example, Stephen Harper, our Prime Minister. Parliament can be prorogued whenever the Prime Minister wants to restart the agenda with a new throne speech. What is a throne speech? A throne speech is an event where the Governor-General reads a prepared speech to members of Parliament, outlining the government's agenda for the coming session. Stephen Harper prorogued in December 2008, weeks after the general election. Stephen Harper at that time headed a minority government. He asked Governor-General Michael Jean to prorogue his minority parliament to avoid being replaced by a coalition government because he wanted to avoid losing a confidence vote in the House of Commons. Coalition government, that's right. Two opposing parties, the Liberals and NDP, formed a plan for a possible coalition government supported by the Bloc Québécois. So, now you guys have learned what a majority, minority, and coalition government is. Thanks for listening in.